Tour the cruise ports, the Baltic states of Latvia and Lithuania. Dr. Sydney Soclof. drsidney22@gmail.com. 2022.
Narration by Dr. Sydney Soclof,
Zoe Phonemes,
and Nathan Koltov. For a more complete discussion of YouTube navigation, please go to this video using the link here.
Chapter 23. Latvia.
In the Latvian language, the country's full name is Latvijas Republika, or the Republic of Latvia. This is the flag of Latvia.
This shows the location of the three Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. Latvia is between Lithuania and Estonia on the eastern shore of the Baltic Sea.
The capitals and largest cities of the Baltic states are Tallinn in Estonia, Riga in Latvia, and Vilnius in Lithuania.
This is the coat of arms of Latvia.
The capital and largest city of Latvia is Riga.
Latvia is slightly larger than the state of West Virginia. It is bounded on the west by the Baltic Sea, on the north by Estonia and the Gulf of Riga, on the east by Russia, and on the south by Belarus and Lithuania.
About half the total coastline faces the Gulf of Riga and is well sheltered from the open Baltic Sea. Latvia is a land of numerous rivers, lakes, and wetlands. The country has more than 12,000 rivers and streams, although only 17 are larger than 100 kilometers, 60 miles. Latvia's picturesque landscape features gently rolling hills and thick forests interspersed with numerous rivers, lakes, and marshes.
Riga, the capital, is by far the largest city in Latvia, and indeed the largest city in the Baltic states.
Riga is a fascinating mixture of Latvian tradition and the influences of the various countries that have occupied it. Independent once again since 1991, Riga's Art Nouveau Center has won it UNESCO World Heritage Site designation.
Riga's old city and its abundance of bars and restaurants can be explored on foot. The new town is easily reached by an efficient and modern bus and tram network. The three largest cities in Latvia are Riga, Daugavpils, and Liepāja. The Latvians are a Baltic people, culturally related to the Estonians and Lithuanians, with the Latvian language having many similarities with Lithuanian, but not with the Estonian language. Today the Latvian and Lithuanian languages are the only surviving members of the Baltic language branch of the Indo-European family. Ethnic Latvians constitute a slight majority of the population, while Russians make up the largest minority group at almost 30%.
Chapter 24. The Latvian language.
Latvian is the official state language of Latvia. Alternative names include Lettish and Lettish. There are about 1.5 million native Latvian speakers in Latvia and about 150,000 abroad. The Latvian language has a relatively large number of non-native speakers, atypical for a small language. Because of language policy in Latvia, Approximately 60% of the 900,000 ethnic minority population of Latvia speak Latvian. The use of the Latvian language in various areas of social life in Latvia is increasing. Latvian first appeared in Western print in the mid-16th century with the reproduction of the Lord's Prayer in Latvian in Sebastian Munster's Cosmographia Universalis in Roman script. Here are the branches of the Indo-European language family. Latvian is a Baltic language. It is most closely related to Lithuanian, although the two are not mutually intelligible. The Baltic language family is related to the Balto-Slavic group, of which a major branch is the source of the various Slavic languages, including Russian, Polish, Czech, Bulgarian, and Serbo-Croatian. However, the Baltic languages are quite distinct and removed from the Slavic languages.
Chapter 25. Latvian History.
Latvian history. Beginning in the 13th century, Latvia was successively dominated by Germany, Poland, and Russia. In 1918, Latvia became an independent country, as did Estonia and Lithuania. The three countries became known as the Baltic States. In 1940, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or USSR, forcibly annexed the Baltic States. Latvia regained its independence in 1991 and reinstated a parliamentary democracy. The country transformed its economy as well, rapidly dismantling the centralized system of the Soviet period in favor of a Western-style free market economy.
Latvia's success in implementing these reforms helped it gain full membership in the European Union (EU) in 2004.
Latvia lies within the Great North European Plain. The country's low-lying plains and rolling hills were sculpted during the most recent ice age when glaciers moved over the land. Fertile lowlands occupy about 3/4 of the country. The land gently rises in elevation from west to east. The eastern uplands constitute the largest expanse of land in the Baltics, with an elevation of more than 200 meters (660 feet). Latvia's highest point, Giesina Kalns, reaches a height of 312 meters (1,024 feet) in the east-central part of the country.
The Daugava is Latvia's largest river in terms of water volume, as well as one of the principal rivers of the Baltic drainage area. It originates in Russia, where it is known as the Western Dvina, and passes through Belarus before entering Latvia. The Daugava flows through Riga into the Gulf of Riga. Several dams on the river generate hydroelectricity. Chapter 26. Riga. This is the flag of Riga. Riga, the capital of Latvia, is situated on the Baltic Sea coast at the mouth of the Daugava River. Riga is the largest city in the Baltic states. Riga was founded in 1201 and is the geographical center of the Baltic states. Tourism is beginning to become increasingly important in what is quickly becoming one of Europe's top cultural capitals.
Riga is a city of 800,000 on the Daugava River, and the capital of Latvia. Latvia is now finding its place in a new world after being occupied for 50 years, 1941 to 1991. First by the Nazis, and then by the Soviet Union.
Riga is located on the site of an ancient settlement of the Livonians, an ancient Finnic tribe. Riga is at the junction of the Daugava River and the Riga River, near the Gulf of Riga. After many years of Russian domination, Riga is a city in transition. English is becoming the second language instead of Russian. Today, Riga is a place with major attractions for visitors.
Opera, music, and ballet flourish. And even during Soviet times, Riga was known for its arts offerings.
Riga has museums that house displays on everything from art and textiles to free fighting and the history of medicine.
Old Riga, the historic center of the city, has been recognized by UNESCO, and the city's Art Nouveau architecture is among the finest in Europe. Riga is a major seaport and a cultural and industrial center. Industries include shipbuilding and the manufacture of electrical equipment, pharmaceuticals, processed food, and wood products.
The old section of Riga is surrounded by a moat and contains several medieval buildings, including a 13th-century cathedral and guild halls from the 14th century. Riga has a symphony orchestra, several libraries, institutions of higher education, theaters, museums, and a zoological garden.
The historic center of Riga has been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Riga is particularly notable for its extensive Jugendstil, German Art Nouveau, architecture, which UNESCO considers to be unparalleled anywhere in the world.
Chapter 27. Riga History.
The modern founding of Riga began with the arrival of German traders, mercenaries, and religious crusaders in the second half of the 12th century, attracted by a sparsely populated region, potential new markets, and missionary opportunities to convert the local population to Christianity. German merchants established an outpost for trading with the Baltic tribes near Riga in 1158. Bishop Albert of Livonia landed in Riga in 1201 and established Riga as his bishopric. Bishop Albert of Livonia established the Order of Livonian Brothers of the Sword, later a branch of the Teutonic Knights, and granted Riga city rights in 1225. Riga developed into a commercial and craft center, joining the Hanseatic League in 1282.
Riga served as a gateway to trade with the Baltic tribes and with Russia. The Hansa was instrumental in giving Riga economic and political stability, thus providing the city with a strong foundation. This enabled it to endure the political conflagrations that were to come, down to modern times. With the demise of the Teutonic Knights in 1561, Riga had the status of a free imperial city of the Holy Roman Empire for 20 years. Then in 1581, Riga became part of the large Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth.
In 1621, Riga and the outlying fortress of Daugava came under the rule of Gustavus Adolphus, King of Sweden, who intervened in the 30 Years' War, not only for political and economic gain but also in favor of German Lutheran Protestantism. During the Russo-Swedish War, 1656 to 1658, Riga withstood a siege by the Russians. Riga remained the largest city in Sweden until 1710, during a period in which the city retained a great deal of self-government autonomy.
In the course of the Great Northern War, Russia under Tsar Peter the Great invaded Riga. Riga was annexed by Russia and became an industrialized port city of the Russian Empire, where it remained until World War I.
By 1900, Riga was the third largest city in Russia after Moscow and St. Petersburg in terms of the numbers of industrial workers.
During these many centuries of war and changes of power in the Baltic Germans in Riga remained in the dominant position despite demographic changes. Latvians began to supplant Germans as the largest ethnic group in the city in the mid-19th century.
The 20th century brought World War I and the impact of the Russian Revolution of 1917 to Riga. The German army marched into Riga in 1917 and 1918. The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk was signed with Russia, giving the Baltic countries to Germany.
From 1917 to 1918, during World War I, Riga was occupied by the Germans. After the war ended in 1918, Latvia and the other Baltic states declared independence. Riga became the capital of independent Latvia and was to remain so until 1940.
During World War II, Latvia was annexed by the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR, in 1940. Then after the German invasion of Russia in 1941, it was then taken by the Germans. Later in the war, the Soviets regained control of the Baltic states.
Riga became the capital of the Latvian Soviet Socialist Republic from 1945 until 1991, when Latvia again became independent. As a result of the war, Latvia lost approximately one-third of its population. Forced industrialization and planned large-scale immigration of large numbers of non-Latvians from other Soviet republics into Riga, particularly Russians, changed the demographic composition of Riga.
Estimates of the number of Russian speakers in Latvia range up to 42% of the population.
The policy of economic reform, introduced in 1986 as perestroika, led to the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the restoration of an independent Latvia.
The historic center of Riga was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1997.
After 2004, the arrival of low-cost airlines resulted in cheaper flights from other European cities such as London and Berlin, and consequently a substantial increase in the numbers of tourists.
Chapter 28. Points of interest in Riga. Cruise ships dock at the ferry terminal on the Daugava River, and about a half-mile, 15-minute walk to Old Riga.
Other sites of interest, such as the Art Nouveau district, require a taxi or public transportation unless one takes a shore excursion.
This is a map showing points of interest in Riga.
This is the Lutheran Cathedral, the largest church in the Baltic states. Built in the 13th century, it was modified several times in its history. It has a magnificent organ that dates from 1844.
The Riga Castle, in Latvian, Rigas pils, is a castle on the banks of Riva Daugava in Riga, the capital of Latvia. The castle was founded in 1330,
The Riga castle was thoroughly rebuilt between 1497 and 1515. Upon the castle's seizure by the Swedes, they constructed spacious annexes in 1641. The Latvian government declared the castle as its residence in 1938. Today it is the official residence of the President of Latvia, and is also the home of the Museum of Latvian History and the Museum of Foreign Art.
St. Peter's Church was first built in 1209 and enlarged at the beginning of the 15th century.
The current tower was completed in 1746 and is 123 meters, 404 feet, high. Before World War II it was the highest wooden building in Europe. This is a view of St. Peter's Church.
St. John's Church is a small 13th century chapel behind St. Peter's Church.
The Powder Tower, Pulvertornis, is the only tower that remains from the original city walls. The Latvian Museum of War is located inside. The Powdered Tower is the only surviving representative of Riga's 14th century defensive towers. Like many such medieval structures, it has a selection of cannonballs cemented into its flanks, supposed remnants of ancient battles. This is the Latvian Museum of War, inside and adjacent to the Powder Tower, Pulvertornis.
This is the Latvian War Museum, Latvijas Kara Muzejas.
St. James's Cathedral is the Roman Catholic Cathedral of Riga in Latvia. The cathedral is dedicated to St. James the Greater.
The ethnographic open-air museum, Užupis Muzejas, houses farm buildings, and a church representing rural life going back hundreds of years. The museum is about 7.5 miles or 10 kilometers from the city center.
The Ethnographic Open-Air Museum was founded in 1924 and provides a look at traditional Latvian life, with 90 real farmhouses, fishing shacks, churches, and other historical structures. The buildings date from the 16th to the 20th centuries. In summer, craftsmen perform demonstrations, and traditional Latvian food and drink are served in the tavern.
The Museum of the Occupation of Latvia documents the seizure and occupation of Latvia by various invaders from 1940 to 1991. It explains what life was like under the Nazis and Soviets in graphic detail.
Exhibits in the Museum of the Occupation of Latvia explore the murder of 90% of the Latvian Jewish population by the Nazis, and the deportation of tens of thousands of Latvians to the Soviet gulags. There are also exhibits on the fight for Latvian independence. The Museum of Occupation has created an exhibit about KGB operations housed in the former KGB headquarters building in Riga from 1940 to 1991.
One of the most magnificent buildings in Town Hall Square is the House of Blackheads, circa 1334, and rebuilt from 1995 to 1999. Which once hosted a brotherhood of foreign merchants, and now serves as both a museum and concert hall.
The Blackheads was a union of young, unmarried merchants and ship captains in the Hansa cities, which chose Saint Mauritius to be their patron. Saint Mauritius was an imaginary African black Moor. From this the name of the Brotherhood of the Blackheads comes.
Due to their exceptional status, The Blackheads played an important role in society life and traditions. Many important people of that time, including Russian Czars, took part in events organized by the Blackheads. As a German merchant club, the Brotherhood of Blackheads existed in Riga until 1939. Particularly important to Latvians is the Freedom Monument, Brīvības Rīna, on the edge of Old Riga. An honor guard patrols the area, and Latvians place flowers at the base of the monument, an act for which they may have ended up in Siberia during Soviet times.
Nearby in the park known as Bastion Hill are memorial stones to 5 people killed by Soviet troops during the crackdowns in January 1991, right before the country's liberation.
The Freedom Monument, Brīvības paminklis, holds in her hands 3 stars, symbolizing the 3 regions of Latvia: Kurland Kurzem, Livland Vidzem, and Latgalan Latgala.
Throughout the centuries, these regions were part of different countries and had different histories. Although they were always inhabited by the same people, the German nobility in the countryside and merchants in the towns, Latvian serfs and farmers in the countryside, and free Latvians in towns. In the 19th century, during the National Awakening, the idea was born that all lands where Latvians were living belonged together, and that this land should be called Latvia. The unity of these 3 regions symbolizes Latvia itself.
This is why you will see the 3 stars everywhere in Latvia, in the coat of arms of the country. The national ice hockey team is known as the 3-star team, and has always 3 stars in front. And the highest order of the state given for special achievements is called the 3-star order.
During the Russian occupation, the monument honoring independent national Latvia was not removed. The occupation authorities knew how sacred and symbolic is this monument for people, and fearing protests they did not remove it.
The Freedom Monument was where the first demonstrations for Latvian freedom took place in Riga in 1987, and currently it is the most photographed monument in the whole Baltics, and one of the main landmarks of Riga and Latvia.
The story behind this unique architecture of the Cat House tells of its Latvian owner, who was denied membership in the powerful Great Guild.
To show his displeasure, he built 2 cat sculptures on his roof with their backsides facing the guild, and they tails straight up to finish the insult.
St. Mary's Cathedral was first completed in 1270 as a bishop's cathedral and is the largest house of worship in the Baltics. This magnificent building features a large organ, circa 1884, that boasts 6,768 pipes, making it one of the biggest in the world. The Art Nouveau buildings throughout Riga present an exciting outdoor gallery of architecture.
Many of the buildings were designed by Russian architect Mikhail Eisenstein, father of the famous Russian filmmaker Sergei Eisenstein, of the battleship Potemkin fame. A good concentration can be found on Alberta Street. One of the best examples is the house at Stilniku 4A, built in 1905. Now home to the Stockholm School of Economics. The building has been carefully restored to show off the flamboyant style, including a magnificent circular interior staircase.
This is an example of Art Nouveau architecture in Riga.
This is another example of Art Nouveau architecture in Riga. Riga's Central Market, Central Turgus, is interesting not only for its numerous food stalls and the general hustle and bustle but also for the fact it occupies several huge buildings that were Zeppelin hangars during World War I.
This is the fish hall at Riga's Central Market.
The Riga Radio and TV Tower, in Latvian, Riga's Radio and Televizijas tornis, is the tallest structure in the Baltic countries in the European Union. It was built between 1979 and 1986. The highest point of the Riga Radio and TV Tower reaches 368.5 meters, 1209 feet, which makes it the third tallest tower in Europe, after the Ostankino Tower at 540 meters, 1,772 feet, and the Kiev TV Tower at 385 meters, 1,263 feet, and also is the 12th tallest tower in the world. There is an observation platform at the height of 97 meters, from which most of the city can be seen, and in good weather, the Gulf of Riga, and many of the city's surroundings. The Riga Museum of History and Navigation is one of the largest and oldest museums in Latvia and the Baltic states.
Chapter 29. Riga Bus Tour.
A good way to see some of the principal sights of Riga, especially for first-time visitors, is by a hop-on hop-off bus tour. One such tour is offered by the Red Buses. This is a list of stops for the Red Buses. You can get off at any of these stops and then reboard any bus later on. Note that when the cruise ship is in port, there will be a stop at the cruise ship terminal. Buses depart every 30 minutes until 2 p.m. and then hourly until 4 p.m.
This is a map of the Red Buses tour route through Riga. This is a more detailed map of the tour route through the central part of Riga. The entire loop takes 75 minutes.
Only about an hour from Riga. Jamala Beach has been a favorite vacation destination for Rigans since around 1830. In addition to sandy beaches are restaurants, cafes, hotels, and casinos, as well as Livy, the largest water park in the Baltics.
The city of Jurmala itself has charming 19th and 20th century cottages. The Tureta Museum Reserve is about an hour's drive from Riga.
The area includes the medieval Tureta Castle, parts of which date to the 13th century, as well as a medieval cemetery and ancient church. From the largest castle grounds, you can admire scenic views of the Gauja River Valley.
In 2014, Latvia became a member of the Euro system, with the euro as the official currency of the country. While the front side of all euro coins is the same, each member country has its own design for the reverse side. Nevertheless, all euro coins are legal currency in all of the member countries.
Chapter 30. Lithuania.
Along with Latvia and Estonia, the two countries to the north, Lithuania is one of the Baltic states and the largest of the three.
Lithuania sits on the eastern coast of the Baltic Sea, across from Sweden. On its northern border is Latvia.
Lithuania sits on the eastern coast of the Baltic Sea, across from Sweden. On its northern border is Latvia. To the east and south of the country is Belarus, while to the southwest lie Poland and Kaliningrad Oblast, an exclave, part of a country not connected to the main territory of Russia. The capital and largest city of Lithuania is Vilnius, located in the southeastern portion of the country near the border with Belarus. The country's longest and largest river is the Nemunas Neman, which flows north from Belarus to the center of Lithuania, and then west until it reaches the Baltic.
Marshes and swamps are prevalent in Lithuania, especially in the north and west, although much of the original wetlands have been drained for agricultural purposes. Lithuania is a land of fertile, low-lying plains in the western and central regions, and rolling hills in the eastern portion of the country. A flat coastal plain lies along the Baltic Sea.
Nearly all of Lithuania's land is less than 200 meters, less than 660 feet, in elevation. About 1/4 is forested, and there are thousands of lakes in the countryside.
Lithuania has many forests, rivers, and lakes, with about 3,000 small lakes and many rivers. The people are mostly ethnic Lithuanians and members of the Roman Catholic Church. They are proud of their independence, their language, and their distinct cultural traditions.
Once a mostly rural populace reliant on agriculture, today Lithuania has a modern European economy. The three largest cities in Lithuania are Vilnius, Kaunas, and Klaipeda.
This shows the location of the three largest cities in Lithuania.
Chapter 31. Lithuania History.
In the Middle Ages, Lithuania was one of the biggest countries in Europe, reaching from the Baltic to almost the Black Sea. It included the area that is now Belarus and much of Ukraine.
In 1569, Lithuania joined in union with Poland, becoming part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, which later included Latvia and part of Estonia.
In 1918, Lithuania became an independent republic. In 1940, Lithuania was annexed by the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR.
After World War II ended in 1945, Lithuania remained part of the Soviet Union and was controlled by the Lithuanian Communist Party, politically and economically, for more than 4 decades. Lithuania was later the first Soviet republic to declare its independence again as an independent nation in 1990.
When the USSR collapsed in 1991, Lithuania regained its independence. The following year, the country adopted a new constitution and held its first post-Soviet democratic elections.
After independence, Lithuania worked to convert its economy from a centrally controlled socialist model to a free market system. Economic recession, inflation, and unemployment were serious problems as inefficient state-owned enterprises shut down. The situation steadily improved, and in the early years of the 21st century, Lithuania emerged as a forward-looking country, joining both the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and the European Union, EU, in 2004.
Chapter 32. Vilnius.
Vilnius is the capital and largest city of Lithuania with a population of 535,000. It is known for its old town of beautiful architecture. Vilnius was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and in 2009 it was the European Capital of Culture.
Almost half of Vilnius is covered by green areas, including parks, public gardens, and natural reserves.
Vilnius history in 1323. During the reign of Grand Duke Gediminas, Vilnius was first mentioned as the capital of Lithuania. In 1579, the Collegium, an institution of higher education, was founded by the Jesuits in Vilnius, and was upgraded to the level of academy by the Pope. It was the first university in the Baltic countries and became the most important cultural center in the region.
In 1920, Lithuania lost part of its territory, including her historic capital, Vilnius, to Poland. The capital of Lithuania was transferred to Kaunas.
In 2004, Lithuania became a member of the European Union and NATO.
Chapter 33. Points of interest in Vilnius.
St. Peter and St. Paul's Church is a Roman Catholic church built in 1701. It is the centerpiece of a former monastery complex of the Canons Regular of the Lateran. The interior of St. Peter and St. Paul's Church has masterful compositions of some 2,000 stucco figures by Giovanni Pietro Perti. An ornamentation by Giovanni Maria Galli is unique in Europe. The church is considered a masterpiece of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth Baroque.
St. Anne's Church is a Roman Catholic church in the old town of Vilnius, on the right bank of the Vilnia River. It was built in 1500 and is a prominent example of both flamboyant Gothic and brick Gothic styles.
St. Anne's is a prominent landmark in the old town of Vilnius that enabled the district to be included in the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and is one of the most interesting examples of Gothic architecture in Lithuania. Gediminas Tower is an important state and historic symbol of the city of Vilnius, and of Lithuania itself. It is the remaining part of the upper castle in Vilnius. The first wooden fortifications were built by Gediminas, Grand Duke of Lithuania. The first brick castle was completed in 1409 by Grand Duke Vytautas.
The three-floor tower was rebuilt in 1930. Some remnants of the old castle have been restored. The tower houses a museum exhibiting archaeological findings from the hill and the surrounding areas. The museum has models of Vilnius castles from the 14th to the 17th centuries, armament, and iconographic material of the old Vilnius. It is also an excellent vantage point to view the panorama of Vilnius Old Town.
It is possible to climb to the top of the hill on foot, or by taking a funicular.
The reconstruction of the Palace of the Grand Dukes of Lithuania was completed in 2009 and is located near the base of the hill upon which Gediminas Tower stands.
The Palace of the Grand Dukes of Lithuania National Museum was originally constructed in the 15th century for the rulers of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the future kings of Poland. For 4 centuries, the palace was the political, administrative, and cultural center of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. The palace was demolished in 1801 but reconstructed and reopened in 2009.
The Museum of Genocide Victims was established in 1992 and is located in the former KGB headquarters. It is thus informally referred to as the KGB Museum. The museum has exhibits relating to the 50-year occupation of Lithuania by the Soviet Union.
The Cathedral of Vilnius is the main Roman Catholic cathedral of Lithuania. It is situated in Old Town, just off of Cathedral Square. Dedicated to Saints Stanislaus and Ladislaus, the church is the heart of Catholic spiritual life in Lithuania.
The coronations of the Grand Dukes of Lithuania took place in this cathedral. Inside its crypts and catacombs are buried many famous people from Lithuanian and Polish history. During the Soviet regime, the cathedral was converted into a warehouse. Masses were celebrated again starting in 1988, although the cathedral was still officially called the Gallery of Images at that time. In 1989, its status as a cathedral was restored, and the cathedral and the belfry were thoroughly renovated from 2006 to 2008. The Vilnius TV Tower at 326.5 meters, 1,071 feet, is the tallest structure in Lithuania and is occupied by the SC Lithuanian Radio and Television Center.
The observation deck houses the Café Paksiutėkas, or in English, Milky Way, and offers a picturesque view of the city and its surroundings. It has a rotating platform that revolves once every 45 minutes.
The TV tower played a major role in the events of January 13, 1991. When 14 unarmed civilians lost their lives and 700 were injured opposing the Soviet military seizure of the tower. A small museum dedicated to the January 1991 battle is housed on the ground floor, and various markers in the surrounding area indicate places where Lithuanian citizens died while trying to maintain the blockade against Soviet troops.
Gediminas Avenue is the main street of Vilnius, where most of the governmental institutions of Lithuania are concentrated, including the government, parliament, constitutional court, and ministries.
Gediminas Avenue is also the place of cultural institutions such as the Lithuanian National Drama Theatre, Bank of Lithuania, Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theatre, and the Martynas Mažvydas National Library.
Gediminas Avenue is also a popular shopping and dining street. It is partially a pedestrian street in the evenings when the traffic is prohibited.
The street was built in 1836 and named after the Grand Duke of Lithuania Gediminas. The street terminates at the Zvėrinas Bridge over the Neris River at one end, and at the Cathedral Square and Vilnius Castle complex on the other. The Gate of Dawn, or in Lithuanian, Aušros Vartai, is a city gate of Vilnius, and one of the most important religious, historical, and cultural monuments. It was built between 1503 and 1522 as a part of defensive fortifications for the city of Vilnius. Of the 9 city gates, only the Gate of Dawn remains, while the others were destroyed by the order of the government at the end of the 18th century.
The Vilna Gaon Jewish State Museum in Lithuanian, Valstybinis Vilniaus Gaono Žydų Muziejus. In Yiddish, IN is dedicated to the historical and cultural heritage of Lithuanian Jewry.
The Vilna Gaon Jewish State Museum received its current name in 1997, commemorating the 200th anniversary of the death of the Talmudic scholar, the Vilna Gaon. The 5 branches of the Vilna Gaon Jewish State Museum focus on various aspects of history and culture. The Tolerance Center's collections include works of sacred, modern, and traditional art along with historical materials. The greenhouse is a Holocaust exhibit. The Paneriai Memorial is dedicated to the Paneriai massacre. The Jacques Lipschitz Memorial Museum in Druskininkai exhibits his lithographs. And the former Tarba Gymnasium displays the history of Lithuanian Jews in the interwar and Nazi period.
The old town of Vilnius, in Lithuanian, Vilniaus Senamiestis, is one of the largest surviving medieval old towns in Northern Europe. It encompasses 74 blocks, with almost 1,500 buildings.
The oldest part of Vilnius. It has developed over the course of many centuries and has examples of Europe's greatest architectural styles: Gothic, Renaissance, Baroque and Neoclassical.
Pilies Street, Castle Street, in Lithuanian. Pilies Gatve, is one of the main streets in the old town of Vilnius. It is a short street, running from Cathedral Square to Town Hall Square.
Pilies Street is the old town's hub of cafe and street market life. The main street of Vilnius, Gediminas Avenue, is partially located in the old town. The central squares in the old town are the Cathedral Square and the Town Hall Square.
One of the most elaborate architectural complexes is the Vilnius University Architectural Ensemble, which occupies a large part of the old town and has 13 courtyards.
Vilnius University, Vilnius Universitetas, is the oldest university in the Baltic states and one of the oldest in Northern Europe. It is the largest university in Lithuania. The university was founded in 1579 as the Jesuit Academy College of Vilnius by the Grand Duke of Lithuania and King of Poland, Stephen Bathory. It currently has an enrollment of 21,000 students.
In 1994, the Vilnius Old Town was included in the UNESCO World Heritage List in recognition of its universal value and originality.
This is a typical street in Vilnius Old Town.
Chapter 34. Užupis.
Užupis is located in Vilnius Old Town, and is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Užupis means the other side of the river in the Lithuanian language and refers to the Vilnia River. The name Vilnius was derived from the Vilnia.
Užupis has been popular with artists for some time and has been compared to Montmartre in Paris and Freetown Christiania in Copenhagen, due to its bohemian and laissez-faire atmosphere. In 1997, Užupis declared itself an independent republic. As the Republic of Užupis, it has only about 148 acres, 0.60 square kilometers in size and 7,000 inhabitants, nearly 1,000 being artists.
Užupis is separated from the rest of Old Town by the Vilnia River. The first bridges across the river were built in the 16th century, at which time the district's inhabitants were mostly Jewish.
Chapter 35. Vilnius Bus Tours.
A good way to see some of the principal sites of Vilnius, especially for first-time visitors, is by a hop-on hop-off bus tour. One such tour is offered by Vilnius City Tour. The duration of the tour is 1 hour and 20 minutes. The tour is narrated in English, Russian, Italian, French, German, Spanish, Norwegian, Polish, Lithuanian, Finnish, and Swedish. This is a map of the tour route of the Vilnius City Tour.
This shows the first 6 of the 11 stops of the Vilnius city tour.
This shows the stops 7 through 11 of the Vilnius city tour.
Chapter 36. Klaipeda.
Klaipeda is the third largest and oldest city in Lithuania. First mentioned in 1252 under the name of Mamelberg. Klaipeda has a long history, starting as a fishing village of ancient Balts, and then the arrival of German crusaders in the 13th century.
The Crusaders built their castle there in 1252 and formed the city, then known as Memel.
Klaipeda, German, Memel, is Lithuania's only seaport and has ferry terminal connections to Sweden and Germany.
Some of the older buildings of Klaipeda have picturesque half-timbered construction, similar to that found in Germany, France, England, Denmark, and southern Sweden.
The population of Klaipeda is 160,000. Popular seaside resorts found close to Klaipeda are Nida to the south on the Curonian Spit, and Palanga to the north.
The Teutonic Knights built a castle in 1252 and named it Memelberg. Later the name was shortened to Memel. Since 1945 the Lithuanian name of Klaipeda has been used.
Of the ethnic groups in Klaipeda, Lithuanians at 63% are the majority, with Russians at 28% and Poles at 5%.
The port of Klaipeda is the principal ice-free port on the eastern coast of the Baltic Sea. It is the most important Lithuanian transportation hub, connecting sea, land, and railway routes from east to west.
Chapter 37. Klaipeda Old Town.
Chapter 37. Klaipeda Old Town. Klaipeda's main attractions are the historic buildings in the city's center, dating from the 13th to 18th centuries.
Klaipeda's Old Town is notable among other towns in Lithuania for its compactness and the abundance of German and Scandinavian architecture. In the interwar period, it was even considered one of the most beautiful cities in the North European region.
Klaipeda's Old Town is unique with its patchwork architectural style and the planned street structure, which is uncharacteristic of any other old town in Lithuania, as the streets have intersections always at right angles.
In the past, Old Town had the major office buildings, and later commercial centers, with the largest city stores, wholesale warehouses, and banks located there. Today there are many cafes, restaurants and souvenir shops, and of course numerous architectural monuments.
Theatre Square in Old Town is a popular place among the city people and its visitors.
An important focus of Theatre Square is the Tarawa sculpture depicting a youthful barefoot girl. The sculpture was erected in the memory of the poet Simonas Dačas and is of one of the poet's heroes. The love song of Tarawa is a German folk song. The building behind the sculpture is the drama theater. Since the 18th century, the theater has played an important role in the cultural life of Klaipeda. This building was reconstructed in the 19th century in the neoclassic style. The impressive Arca monument weighing 150 tons and stretching to 8.5 meters in height was built in 2003 commemorating the 80th anniversary of joining the Klaipeda area, Lithuania Minor, to the Greater Lithuania. A column of red granite symbolizes Lithuania Minor, and gray granite represents Lithuania Major.
The top cleaved part of the monument depicts the Karaliaučius region, Kaliningrad, which has never been connected to Lithuania. Engraved on the monument are famous words of the Lithuanian poetess Ieva Simonaitytė: "We are one people, one land, one Lithuania."
The artist's yard has original thatchwork warehouses of Klaipeda dating from the 18th century and never found elsewhere in Lithuania. The art workshop invites visitors to experience the spirit of past times and to get familiar with handicraft articles of Western Lithuania.
Other places of interest include the remnants of the Memmelberg Castle, built in the 13th century by the Teutonic Order. It had a massive bulk and a quadrangular tower, surrounded by the ramparts and brick bastions.
Memmelberg Castle lost importance after the Russian occupation from 1756 to 1762 and thenceforth started to decay.
The Lithuanian Sea Museum is the only museum of its kind in the Baltic region. The Lithuanian Sea Museum is inside an old fortress dating from the 19th century.
The Lithuanian Sea Museum has penguins and performing dolphins as well as 3 Soviet-era trawlers and a recreated traditional fishing village. The exhibits are all presented in English as well as Lithuanian.
At the beginning of 2006, the entrance to the old town received its first guard. Man's best friend, a dog. This sculpture is called the Guard of Old Town. The sculpture stands in Turgaus Square, near Pilis Street. It is meant to stand as a symbol of the Chinese sign for the year 2006, which is the year of the dog.
The sculpture Golden Mouse in Old Town is a sculpture of a little 17 cm bronze and stone mouse. The creation is magic according to its creators. And the writing on the bronze band around the tiny creature means, convert your ideas into words, words will become magic. The sculpture Old Town Cat, or the cat with the face of a gentleman, started living in the old town of Klaipeda in 1979. It is just one of many magical inhabitants of the old town.
The Klaipeda Clocks Museum opened in 1984. Clocks and watches from the end of the 19th to the beginning of the 20th century made up the basic part of the exhibition. The Clock and Watch Museum has exhibits on clock and watch construction and clock and watch making styles.
Klaipeda Castle is an archaeological site and museum housed in a castle built by the Teutonic Knights in Klaipeda.
The Teutonic Knights called the castle Memmelberg or Memmel, and Klaipeda itself was generally known as Memmel until 1923 when Lithuanian military forces took over the city.
Klaipeda Castle was first mentioned in written sources in 1252 and underwent numerous destructions and reconstructions in the centuries that followed. During the 19th century, having lost its strategic importance, the castle was demolished. Archaeological work was performed during the 20th century, and in 2002 a museum was established underneath one of its bastions. Martynas Mažvydas Sculpture Park, named after Lithuania's first author, is a collection of contemporary designs, which can also be found dotted around the rest of the city.
The Martynas Mažvydas Sculpture Park was originally a cemetery, but has since been transformed into a sculpture park. But gravestones can still be found in the park. The History Museum of Lithuania Minor is a small museum that traces the origins of Lithuania Minor, Latvian, a coastal region that was part of East Prussia for several centuries. The History Museum of Lithuania Minor exhibits Prussian maps, coins, artifacts of the Teutonic Order, traditional weaving machines, and traditional folk art.
The Maritime Museum is at Fort Wilhelm, which was built at the end of the 19th century. The museum features the vessel Meridianus, which was built in 1948 in Finland as reparations to the Soviet Union after World War II, along with 48 Thessaloniki ships.
The Meridianus offers a marine exposition and exhibits about its history, journeys at sea, the structure of the ship, and various maritime instruments. This is a map of Klaipeda showing the location of the old town.
This shows the location of points of interest in Klaipeda Old Town.
This is another view of Klaipeda Old Town.
Pilsudis is a 34-story building in Klaipeda and the tallest residential building in Lithuania. Construction of the tower was completed in 2007.
Trakai Island Castle, Lithuanian, Trakų salos pilis, is an island castle located in Trakai, on an island in Lake Galve. The construction of the stone castle was begun in the 14th century. Trakai was one of the main centers of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, and the castle held great strategic importance.
The Trakai castle was the most photographed castle in Lithuania. In 2015, Lithuania became a member of the euro system, with the euro as the official currency of the country. While the front side of all euro coins is the same, each member country has its own design for the reverse side. Nevertheless, all euro coins are legal currency in all of the member countries.
Chapter 38. Baltic Song Festivals.
Interesting cultural events in all three of the Baltic states are the song festivals, Estonian, Aldlaulupedu, Latvian, Dziesmu svētki, Lithuanian, Dainų šventė. They are traditional amateur song and dance festivals and are included in the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List.
In 2014, the Estonian Song Festival attracted a total of 160,000 people. This was the largest figure since Estonian re-independence. The first song festival in the Baltics was held in 1869 in Estonia, Estonian Song Festival. In 1873 in Latvia, Latvian Song and Dance Festival. And lastly the tradition came to Lithuania, Lithuanian Song Festival, in 1924.
These festivals are massive events attracting up to 30,000 singers. The festivals, held every 5 years in Estonia and Latvia and every 4 years in Lithuania, celebrate traditional folk songs and dances. During the Soviet era, the festivals were a subtle political protest against communism. In the late 1980s, Songs became an integral part of the independence movement, sometimes known as the Singing Revolution.
Chapter 39. Recommended videos, Baltic states.
Geography now. Latvia. Geography now. Latvia.
Top 10 reasons to visit Latvia, Mojo Travels.
10 best things to do in Riga.
Geography now. Lithuania.
Top 10 reasons to visit Lithuania.
10 best things to do in Vilnius. YouTube navigation.
Thanks for watching.